Hey, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. We are here with Brianna Andrew. Now, if you ever wanted to meet somebody who competed for Team USA, if you ever wanted to meet a professional bowler, today is your day. Brianna is going to run us through her experiences in her professional career, how she rests, how she recovers, and how mental fitness and performance psychology plays a role in her everyday life, including as a mental health clinician. Brianna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Yes, no complaints over here. Very thankful to be on the podcast and have a good discussion with you. And hopefully, people can learn something from our conversation together.
Well, a lot of people don't know this. I experienced Brianna's resilience already because we've tried to film this podcast and we've had some technical issues. So I'm very thankful that she was able to reschedule and be with us today. But your sport is a very interesting one. If a lot of us are familiar with bowling, we've probably had a lot of family outings, family reunions, playing and doing some bowling. So I was curious about how you got into the sport.
Absolutely. Yeah, as you kind of just said, bowling, I feel like people view bowling one way or the other. It's just super fun with your family and your friends, kind of like having pizza and just having a fun time, or people do view it in a competitive light. How I got into it, I grew up in the suburbs of Chicago and kind of got involved in youth leagues at a really young age. And it was just something that I committed to as a sport from the young age until now. Where I grew up in Chicago, there was a lot of youth opportunity to grow in the sport and to be competitive in it. So eventually I just stayed at it and was able to get scholarship money through it and build relationships and build my game through being involved in an environment that was competitive out in Illinois.
It's great. And with a lot of people, they go through their sport and then there's a day or a moment where they realize that they are able to do their sport at a level different than everybody else. So what was that moment for you when you recognized that internally and also when your community recognized like, oh, she's going to be good?
Yeah, I think just through my whole youth career, I kind of flew under the radar. A lot of bowlers now in the professional world, you'll hear them having these big youth careers, whether that's in high school or college. And I would not say I was someone who had a lot of those stories to tell in terms of being a standout or having a lot of accolades to carry with me from my youth career. But I think it was because I was involved in other sports too. I wasn't giving all my time to it as a young athlete. But I think the turning point in which I felt like I was a competitive bowler and could do this in a bigger stage was just how I competed against the people I did in youth tournaments. And in bowling, there's this thing called junior gold, where all the youth competitors throughout the nation compete at a higher level. And I was able to kind of keep up with all of my other peers and just through conversations with my coaches or people I trust in my life. And through that encouragement, I was able to just take it more competitively moving forward.
And you talked about playing other sports other than bowling. So what were some of the other things you were involved in? And, specialization is such a hot topic today where a lot of young people are just playing one sport. What was it about playing all those sports that help you be the best bowler you could possibly be?
Absolutely. I was a pretty avid swimmer from age 6 to about 14. And I think something that I've been reflecting on actually recently between swimming and bowling is it's quite a bit of an individual sport when you get to this level. Swimming is really difficult on the body, on the mind, and it takes a lot of your time if you give that time to it to be a competitive swimmer. So I think there's been a lot of similarities for me in carrying that into my bowling career of how do I compete as an individual competitor. I don't have a lot of experience bowling on a team. And swimming was the same way. It was a lot of racing by yourself, unless you were on a relay, but everything was very much focused inward versus being a part of a collective team.
And I love individual sports. I grew up playing competitive tennis, but one of the reasons why I got out of it was because when you win, it's all you, but when you lose, it's all you too.
It's
So
all
how do you
absolutely.
how do you deal with the stress of an individual sport where you don't necessarily have the teammates there to support you in those moments of celebration or those moments of pain and panic?
Yeah. I think that's where having your team of people really comes into play because you don't actually have a tangible team with you. It's building those relationships and those building who those trusted people are in your life to speak into your sport and your performance that you can rely on. And I have an incredible team of those people that I can call up or spend time with to, work through some of those things, whether it's physical or mental or the stress of those things. But I know that at the end of the day, after a competition, they're the people I can rely on for support when maybe supporting myself is not going to be enough and I need other people in my corner.
That's beautiful. And when we think about your life, what does your practice schedule look like? What does your competition schedule look like? And then what are some of the things you do out of the bowling alley to be able to support your performance in it, like in terms of weightlifting and maybe strength and conditioning?
Yeah. So bowling's kind of an interesting sport with all of those things. And for the professional women's bowling tour, we compete in the months of May, June, a little bit of July, and a little bit of August. So our season is pretty condensed and pretty short. So year round, like practicing or preparing for tour can kind of ebb and flow based on where you are in the year. I'm kind of training year round. I kind of try to keep in that mindset and in that environment for me so that when tour comes around the corner, I'm ready to go and there's no preparing. I'm just ready to be out there and compete. But I try to practice 3 to 4 days a week. There's a local center here that has been incredible to me. They've been incredibly supportive in providing me an environment where I can train. And there's other providers in the area too who have just been incredible and a part of my story as a bowler. In terms of like working out or prepping for tour in terms of strength and all of that, I work out at a gym and I try to do strength and conditioning to keep that strength because our days out on tour are really long. They're 12-hour days, 6-game blocks, 12 games total. So you're kind of competing for these long hours. And I believe that preparing physically is just as important as it is in the gym or in the bowling alley.
Yeah, I would have never thought that there's an endurance element to
Hmm.
bowling, but given how long the competitions are and also how short that competition season is, it definitely has that almost like sprint marathon feel. So it's long in it, but it quickly goes by.
Absolutely.
So how do you, for a competition that lasts so long, how do you maintain such focus mentally?
Yeah, that is the age old question. I think I'm learning what works in different seasons of life. We are not allowed to have our phones when we compete. So I think there's an extra element of trying to keep yourself mentally focused or mentally disengaged in the appropriate moments. But I think I've made a really good system for myself of what works to keep myself mentally sharp during a long competition day. I keep notes and I'm very rigid about how I keep those notes and it keeps me engaged and in the moment throughout like a 12-hour day, basically. And just doing little things that work for me to refresh or restart because it's hard to be that mentally focused for that long. Like it's just not possible as a human being. And so I have these little things that I do to just kind of reset myself and get back in the moment. Or if I need to go take a break, I figure out different ways to do that during competition.
It's fantastic. I know Jack Nicklaus, the golfer, talked about
Mhm.
attention as an accordion, right? So
Yeah.
when you're approaching in between shots, your focus is wide. You can look at the gallery, you can look at the beautiful scenery, you can, talk to your caddy. And then as you approach the shot, your focus kind of narrows to whatever pinpoint information you need to be able to hit the shot really well. Do you feel like your focus does the same thing? Like in between throws, you are focusing pretty wide and you allow your mind to kind of go wherever it needs to go. And then as you get closer to throwing, you kind of narrow your focus.
Yeah, I always kind of say with bowling, for me, there's two different playing fields. The first one is behind the approach, like where the sitting area is for all the players, like somewhere near the fans. And then the second one for me is the approach. So I kind of have two different systems or two different mindsets when I'm in both of those places. And kind of what you just said, like when I step up to the approach, I'm locked in, I'm focused, I have my whole routine down. I know what I'm going to do. But when I step off the approach, it's some of those things, like I said earlier, of resetting, getting in the moment, reflecting if I need to on the shot I just made and making the moves or adjustments that I need to, or checking in with somebody. All of that happens off the approach. But when I get on the approach, everything goes quiet and I'm focused and I'm about to make the best shot I possibly can.
And you talked about everything going quiet. And so with me, that kind of resonates with the word peace and kind of a calm. So how does that peace and that calm allow your body to kind of merge and connect with the ball to be able to make these throw and make these movements that you need to be a successful bowler?
Yeah. Well, I always say as a therapist, your mind and your body are connected. So what's going on in your mind when, whether, you're on the approach or whatever you would be doing in a sport. getting ready to do the thing you're trying to do. Giving attention to what your mind is feeling or thinking then allows you to figure out what is best for your body in that moment and how to create that peace. And for me, the biggest thing is breathing. I know that sounds so simple, but when you can slow down your breath, gets you in tune gets you in tune in the present moment so that you can allow your body to be rested and not tight and kind of like forcing the moment. But the breath work really allows me to just settle in, relax everything, and have the confidence to make the best shot I can.
Now, you said as a therapist, so I'd love to have you explain to the people what you meant by that in your connection to mental health and mental fitness, not only as an athlete, but in your professional life as well.
Yeah. So I am a licensed mental health counselor as well as a professional bowler. And I always say bowling is 90% mental, 10% physical. So I'm really big on, you know, you should be working on your mental game probably 3 times as much as your physical game in bowling. And as a therapist, I know that when your mind is healthy and things are going well with how you take care of yourself in the midst of all of that, then you're able to perform and be the best version of yourself, whether that's in sport or in life. And I think it's all encompassing. Your mental health impacts who you are and how you show up to spaces. And we're all human. There's a lot of things going on in our lives, but the more we are aware of those things and can work through them and get the tools that we need to work through different situations or experiences, the better we are going to be as people.
Totally, totally, 100%. And one of the big keys that a mentor gave me a while back when I started grad school was this idea that our job is to help people think about their thinking.
Mhm.
So whenever I'm in an intake session or even just in my own life, I try to think about my thinking because it allows me to create space between that stimulus and that response. So for you as an athlete, how does thinking about your thinking help you perform at your highest level?
Yeah, I really love that. I love that phrase, thinking about your thinking, because think about throughout a whole day, you can kind of just mindlessly go through the things that you're doing without giving any thought to it, right? And I think the same is true of sport. I think there's an element of muscle memory that comes into play with some things, but giving thought to your thoughts is key in terms of just being a strong athlete. When you have more awareness of what's going on with yourself or what's in front of you or what's happening around you, then you can make proper decisions to move through those things in different ways. And if you're not giving a lot of thought to them, you're kind of just responding to what's around you. And, like I said earlier, we're humans and sometimes we don't naturally respond to things around us in a way that is helpful or beneficial for us as humans or athletes.
Totally. And you mentioned autopilot, and I was thinking while you were talking, I can't imagine or I had never heard of a great athlete saying, well, I was just on autopilot my whole
Mhm.
career and I eventually got to the Hall of Fame or I eventually became an Olympian or a Team USA member. It required some activation of their own ability to influence their lives and the circumstances around them and to really take control of the things they can control to be able to do the miraculous thing, the celebrated thing that we all kind of praise them for and idolize them for. So it's cool to see you take charge of your life, not only between the lines of the bowling alley, but also as a clinician, because the more actively you engaged you are as a clinician, the more rich and beneficial that therapy will be with your clients.
Exactly. Exactly.
And you mentioned that you were also involved in Team USA. So I'd love to hear about how
Yeah.
that came about and what that experience was like for you.
Yeah. So I was on Team USA in 2024. How Team USA works for bowling is it's a yearly, essentially, you try out every year. So it's a year commitment when you make the team. And then you could submit a resume for years following that once you qualify. And the whole qualifying process is it's a week-long event. Sometimes it's in Vegas, sometimes it's in Nevada. It can vary in location, but you bowl 5 different days on 5 different patterns in bowling. And it's a competitive week and it's mentally exhausting and it's physically exhausting, but it's also one of the highlights of my career. And I find so much joy in competing out for Team USA and especially at trials. I feel like I'm a best version of myself as an athlete when I get out there because it's a combination of all those things. You have to be physically sharp, you have to be mentally sharp, and you have to show up for 5 days in a row, which is not the easiest thing to do.
Totally. And what did it feel like to represent your country? I mean, few people have had the privilege or the opportunity to do that. And I'm sure when you were a youth, the thought of doing that was probably very, very low on the list of things you thought you might accomplish in your life. But to actually have that come to fruition is pretty spectacular. So what was that feeling like when you put on the threads that said Team USA on the chest?
Yeah, a year later, I still feel like I'm trying to find the words for it because, like you said, it's something you kind of dream of as a kid in any sport to represent your country for a sport. There's so much pride in that, not just for myself, but for the people I compete with in my sport for our country. And there's something really powerful about competing among the best and being a part of a team collectively. And bowling, it's quite a bit of an individual sport. So to be on a team of other women who love this sport as much as me, who want to be just as competitive as me and want to represent our country. It's something I never want to take for granted. It was truly one of the greatest experiences in my career, and I'm hopeful for being back on the team in years to come. But it's really hard to put into words because you really don't know until you get into that position what it feels like and what value you have for it.
And I totally understand that. Although I've never had the privilege, but I definitely appreciate you representing us in
Mhm.
your sporting arena. That is awesome. One of the things that I was interested in, and one of the things that I work with athletes on, is rest and recovery, right? A lot of athletes know how to bring the energy for practice and games. Like that's easy because those are the things that are expected of them. And they've gotten used to doing that over and over again through the decades that they played their sports. But getting a very active person to rest can be really, really challenging. So my first question to you would be, how do you know when you need to rest?
That's such a great question. I still feel like I'm learning what that looks like for me, but when I know I need to rest, it's typically when I just feel like overwhelmed or uncomfortable. Like when my body is literally telling me slow down or take a break. I'm pretty like I can feel it. I'm not sure everybody else can, but that's like a sure sign for me. And rest kind of changes in different seasons of life. Like when I'm out on tour, we're changing locations pretty frequently. We're traveling for 2 months straight pretty much. And it's really hard to schedule in rest for yourself when you're moving from event to event and competing long days. But rest for me is doing things that fill up my cup, whether that's, going out to coffee with a friend or going on a walk or doing actual recovery, stretching, mobility, things like that. Moving my body is kind of the biggest way that I recover and rest. And then reconnecting with the people who I love deeply and bring a lot of joy and light to my life.
That's great. And when you were talking about doing stuff that fills up your cup, I felt that word gratitude again. And I'm
Mhm,
so used to people talking about gratitude as one of the things that gets them activated, helps them
mhm.
get aroused to be able to play their sport, that I never really thought about gratitude as being something that could be a recovery tool. So it's very interesting when you presented it that way, but I now can see it based upon the way that you talk about it. And so when you think about the privilege of being able to play, and what it means to be a professional athlete when other people have different professions and they're not able to maybe follow their passions as fully as you have. How do you manage that privilege, that feeling of, wow, I get to do this and not have anxiety about losing the thing creep into your mind and start to degrade your performance?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good question because things are fleeting, right? You don't know how long they're going to exist or be around or how long you're going to do something. So I think that point of gratitude really comes in for me because when I'm allowed or when I allow myself the space to give gratitude to the things I get to do, I like to say that I get to do this. It's an opportunity that has been given to me and I'm so incredibly thankful for it. So the more I give that gratitude to it, then the more I'm able to be present and enjoy it for what it is. I think as athletes, we can get down on ourselves and be negative, and I think there's a space to be objective about things that went wrong and how you can grow and change. But I think more when we come into a mindset of having gratitude for the things around us and the life that we get to live in this space, the better the experience will be all around.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And to piggyback off that, we get the opportunity to talk to you today and we got it and we appreciate it so much. If people are looking to find you on social media, where can they find you? And if people are looking to find you in competition, where are some of the places that we can check out professional women's bowling?
Yeah. So I encourage all of you to check out professional women's bowling. It's an incredible community and an incredible sport that I think doesn't get a lot of awareness or spotlight. But where you can check us out for the PWBA is pwba.com, or on social media for the Professional Women's Bowling Association. You can find it on there. And for me, you can find me on Instagram. I'm brianna.andrew.bowling. And then on Facebook too, just Brianna Andrew. We would love more awareness and more light on professional women's bowling. I think it's such a cool season for women's sports in general. So I'm going to find ways to advocate for that however I possibly can, because women deserve that space and that voice. So we hope that you guys check us out and learn more about what bowling is truly like as a competitive sport, because I think a lot of you will be incredibly surprised at how incredible it is.
Well, that's awesome. And we are so excited to check it out. I know I'm going to be checking out more of it because I've had the privilege and the opportunity to talk with you. And one thing that I want to make a part of the conversations I have with athletes is giving them time to acknowledge the people who supported them. Maybe it's hard to kind of name everybody because there are just so many people, but if you were to collect to them as a group, what would you like to say to them in appreciation for everything that they've done to support you?
Yeah, that's so great. I love giving space to that. I would just say thank you to the people who saw the value in who I was as an athlete and as a person. Like, I have so much gratitude for the people who care for me so well and support me as I journey into being a professional athlete. There is quite possibly no way I would be able to do what I get to do without the support of those people, whether it's family, friends, my sponsors, all of these people who are in my corner who are pushing me forward as an athlete. I think about you guys often, and I know I carry you guys with me as I compete, and it is not lost on me the value of having those people in your corner. So I'm incredibly thankful that I have a lot of those people.
It's beautiful. And we are thankful that you had those people too, because with those people, we get to see you perform at such a high level and be able to excel and do the things that you love to do. So thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk with us.
Of
And
course.
we're excited to watch your career continue to bloom and blossom. And we will talk to you soon. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Bye.